get a free summary of the study. All the papers I want to make you pay $35 for them. Hi, I'm Temple Grandin. I'm an individual with autism. And in autism, you've got a lot of challenges, but there's also unique gifts. When I was in high school, I had an absolutely horrible time with being bullied. It was just terrible. But my science teacher saved me. And in this film, you're going to see how other people on the spectrum are dealing with the challenges, but also some of the special abilities that autism can give you.
My name is Gregory Yates, and I'm 58 years old. My major spiritual practice is Zen. In the Japanese tradition, there's such a strong component of silent communication. I discovered autism because my wife at the time knew there was something odd about me. I mean, she'd known that from the beginning. And she read a book that described the French scientist and artist Henri Michaud, who was described in the book as autistic. And reading the description of him was the first time I'd encountered a description of anyone who was clearly socially disabled. There was something radically different about this person, and yet he was intellectually all there. A creative, very intelligent person. And I said, oh, that's me. Being around other autistic people, it's nonverbal. There's a sense of silent recognition that's very powerful for me. And it doesn't matter where they are on the spectrum either. High functioning, low functioning, I have this sense of deep connection. And when I'm around autistic people, I'm reminded, you know, it's okay. It's difficult, it's been difficult, but it isn't really my fault that this is the way I am.
My name is Robin Stewart and I'm 24 years old. My mum noticed very early on that I was autistic. She was noticing that, for example, when she breastfed me, I didn't snuggle up to her. As I got older, I didn't point at things. I didn't put my arms up to be cuddled. And so she worked very early on trying to get me to interact and trying to break down that wall. She didn't want me to not be able to function in the real world. When I was 8, the school teacher said to my mum, Robin's moved class recently, and I thought that I would be having problems with the kids with severe behavioural problems, but actually the child that's having most difficulty settling in is Robin. So I duly got referred to a paediatrician and a psychiatrist, and then I got my diagnosis a couple of years later when I was 11. And then when I was 12, I started asking my mum questions about why I behaved differently and why I got bullied, questions like that, and she then told me that I was autistic.
Hi, I'm Jim Ulrey. My age is 69 years old, otherwise 100 times the natural logarithm of 2. I discovered autism when my ex-wife took me down to see Tony Atwood in UCLA. In order to offset the fee of the diagnosis, I served as a subject for illustration to a group of other people. They had 10 people in the same room observing the process, and they had another 20 or 30 behind a one-way mirror, watching it from behind the mirror.
Okay, my name's Kevin O'Brien. I'm 42 years old. My parents said I used to have a lot of tantrums and generally didn't want to interact or play with kids very often, and would be very insular and very awkward. You know, and I felt just not happy. When looking at Asperger's and autism, I didn't actually read anything. I generally don't read very much. My wife did and my therapist did. And they said if we didn't know any better, we'd say you were just read the book and are just regurgitating it. And they said, but they know for a fact that I've not read about it. And I did some of these online tests and other sort of quizzes and things and been assessed by other people. And they just went, well, you're very, very much on the spectrum.
My name is Jacob Wang. I'm 41. I first heard about it by taking a class on it in college. I took a class in abnormal psych, and it was covered.
And how did you relate that with yourself in terms of, you know, kind of following up that question, like, how did you discover autism for yourself?
Just some intense interests, and also the inability to relate to strangers.
So what is autism?
Well, let's see. I think it's more well known now than in the past, perhaps, but probably always been around. Kind of a learning disability, a lack of ability to communicate, shows up often in young children, and makes it very hard to deal, with socializing and communication. So that's about really all I know. I don't know that it's caused by anything, whether it's inherited or something in the environment. I don't know of that issue. In fact, I think that's up to a lot of debate. So anyway, so the kids can't really communicate normally, or people that have autism. And but what's normal? We're all perfectly sane, right? So there is no normal.
What is autism?
It seems to be a lessening of, well, hold on a second. People with autism see things differently than the norm. They perceive things differently. I just saw a thing about a professor at Colorado State who has autism. She has her PhD in animal husbandry because she sees things in pictures rather than the way that normal people do. That's about what I know.
Let's see, I have a cousin who's autistic actually, and he's just like kind of really socially awkward, but he's really, really smart. He just doesn't really know what's right or wrong in terms of interacting with other people. But that's just kind of like my experience. I don't really know much outside of that. Just, with personal relations with him, it's like he's really fun one second, and then all of a sudden he just like starts screaming, and we don't really know why. It's that kind of thing. But yeah.
Well, it's neurodevelopmental, which means that it starts early in development, and it's a lifelong disability. And it ranges in severity, and there's sort of an umbrella notion, a spectrum notion. High functioning, low functioning, it correlates. Well, I would say that that's all, I think, for definition.
Okay, my name is Frank Schultz, and I'm 61 years old. I discovered autism through just random search over like 20 or 30 years. I knew something was off. When I'd get directions like from my mother, like, oh, you should say hello to people. And I was just puzzled. I think I grew more and more dissatisfied, and I just looked at different self-help techniques, and eventually I read some neurology type stuff like Oliver Sacks's The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. I did some kind of online search, and I found this IRC group for autistic individuals, and in the conversations there's some kind of resonance.
Daly City train, doors are closing, please stand clear, doors are closing.
There's really exhilaration in finding there were other people who had just like the same kinds of difficulties.
My name is Kamal Walker, and I am 19 years old. I felt quite amazed that I'm diagnosed with this because That way I could learn new things and I can have a good remembering and do things differently.
I'm Andrew Bixler and 29. I was even diagnosed before I even knew what autism was.
When you think about being on the spectrum, being on the autistic spectrum yourself, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means trying to, that you have a disorder and trouble to cooperate with some people or fit in.
My name is Donald, and my age is 44. Actually, I didn't really know up until about 1998, which is kind of not that long ago. A lot of people I know are so-called normal people because I operate at such a high level. I don't have any real issues. Like, I mean, some people with Asperger's or autism, depending on the individual, they just have a little more patience. Like, there's this computer club I go to on times known as Noise Bridge. So even some of the people on the spectrum that are kind of into computers like me, they have to realize some of these people are extremely advanced and they have to have a little more patience for some of these people.
My name is Janice Oberman and I'm 52 years old. I assumed it was inherited and that I was a carrier actually. That's how I thought of it because of course I wouldn't have thought that I was autistic at the time in 1977 when I was 19 years old because nobody was considered to be autistic that was basically, that was in college and was, high functioning like that functioned close to, pretty much normally. That wasn't even in any of the theories then. So, and later on I always kind of kept my eye on this stuff. I was sure that my kid was going to end up autistic. I was really afraid of it.
My name is Woody Hillbell, and I'm 26 years old.
So how did you discover autism?
When I was in my late teens, I transferred to a school, and when I was there, I started to understand not only what autism was, but how it's diagnosed, how it affects a person, and what kind of challenges that people who are on the spectrum face.
Autism is thought to affect 1 in 100 children and an unknown number of adults. Well, with me now, Robin Stewart. She has Asperger's syndrome in the spectrum of autism and mentors children with the disability to improve their social skills. Robin, what does it feel like, Asperger's form of autism?
Well, it's different for everybody, and I've never had another form of autism, so it's difficult to say what it might feel like to have kind of autism. But put it this way, it's like sitting behind a translucent wall and looking at the world out, so the world could be a bit distorted.
I like to swing because nobody is here, just me. I can be somewhere where no one can intrude inside my mind.
As a child, I did feel very different to my peers because I didn't read body language and I didn't read vocal inclination, and that meant that I struggled with all the communication that my peers were able to master very quickly. And as I got older and went through puberty and then into adolescence, I felt very much that everybody else was progressing socially and I wasn't. I used to hate activity days at the end of term when we had free time, and I just found that type of social interaction that was so free and easy to other people totally overwhelming.
I did feel different, not only because I was placed in special education, but because, of certain habits like clapping, and also I seemed to be a bit antisocial, and I just didn't really feel like I was normal.
The kids would aggregate and talk with one another, and I would be off by myself, and I didn't understand it. They talked a lot, and I didn't say anything at all, and I would have liked to have been like the rest of them, but I wasn't.
I was teased a lot. And I mean continuously by both the boys and the girls. it was really bad. I was really miserable. I was really miserable at school. I played by myself on the playground and that kind of a thing. I hated the recess part of it.
Unfortunately, both my parents passed away, so when I was clearing out their papers and stuff, I found letters and reports about me from the schools and colleges I went to, which showed there was something different, and they were concerned, but they weren't quite sure what it was. So I never got to discuss it with them. I just found it very hard. In general, they knew I found life very hard. When I was a child, I was bullied all the time. It was something that was constant throughout my childhood. Stopped at college because I had a certain level of visual expression. I did a film course, so we're all a little bit strange in our own ways. But, you know, from entering school to leaving school at 18, I was constantly bullied and picked on because the things I did and the way I acted was different to everybody else. And also predominantly because I couldn't find things as easy as everybody else. I was singled out by teachers for being stupid and slow.
There were certain people, well, students or kids, who would sometimes bully me, not necessarily through typical physical means, but sometimes act like they were my friends in front of the teachers and other parents or adults, but other times they tease me or treat me as if I didn't belong, as if I was different or I was just inferior.
My father actually remembered that the principal had called them in about me being bullied. And in those days, they blamed me. It was because I was too sensitive.
It lasted for a while until the bullies figured out that picking on me was hazardous to their health.
So were you bullied, like what ages were you bullied?
Junior high school up through the present.
How are you presently bullied?
People don't hire me in job interviews. There's the Volkswagen, which makes the second car in the backyard. This is where the thermocouple goes, and this is a centrifuge.
Over the course of some years, in my recollection it was about 4 years, he became very arrogant and crotchety and demanding. And I couldn't go for that, you know. I mean, finally I said to him, Jim, who are the most important people to you? You know, I went through this little spiel with him about, you know, don't act that way around me. I'm the only person that cares about you. And so over time he's changed it. It was in 2001. I can't remember. We went to a wedding around the early 2000s, and he learned to smile. So I find things and then I pick on him for a while. And finally they start to sink in, and maybe it takes, maybe it doesn't. You know. See this? I did this for him. See, this is a patch right here. I take care of this man. I patched it with iron-on tape and then I stitched it up.
So you guys have one kid?
No, we have two. They both find it much harder than I do to think of words and to put things into words. And that's one of Jimmy's characters. He finds it very hard to put things into words. But if you're just patient, I mean, I just wait. You know, so I'm patient. He's going to be my main technician. We got a microscope, and it is able to take pictures of what it sees and transfer it to the computer. So we'll be weighing what's called callus. That's just undifferentiated cells that are just growing in a dish. And we'll also be having little shoots and roots come out, we hope. So we'll be able to take pictures and stuff like that. And I don't know, we'll see how it goes. He's very patient, his hands are very steady. And that's okay. What I've seen of him in the lab, he has good technique. You have to set firm rules, however. Keep the pipette drawer closed. That's a terrible story. He got fired from one job.
I did not.
You did too.
I got fired, yes.
Well,
I was
at
told
least-
about keeping the doors
Well, that was one of the things. He ran the front off the gel, and so the run was wasted. And it was like 4
Okay.
hours in an afternoon.
You have an electrical field, and the electrical field causes the things to move, and you have a die front that moves ahead of everything. Well, you stop it before the die front runs off, then you have something to measure against to see how far the rest of them is. So if the die
The
front runs
relative position.
off the front of the gel, which happens if you're not watching it, then you don't have anything to measure it from, and so it goes out of there.
That was really bad. That was a bad mistake. He can learn to be more neurotypical if he's interested in that particular symptom or character that I want to work on. But it takes a lot to get his attention.
And why should I?
Why should I? To make me happier, dear, and to maybe get a better job, and to make your boss happier. Those are the things ones I work on.
I was bullied a lot as a teenager. I started getting bullied before my teens. Probably when I was 8 years old, I started to become aware that I was being bullied. Before that, I got teased, but I wasn't necessarily aware of it. And it was just, to begin with, just name calling. And then it kind of escalated to where the young people would be, I suppose, it escalated to where people in my class would take advantage of things like my gullibility, which is something which a lot of people with autism have. So, for example, if I walked into the classroom and the phone was ringing, and the other kids said, "Oh, Robin, go answer the phone," then I probably would, and then I'd be in trouble. And I'd have said that happened quite regularly, these sort of lapses where they would just take advantage of basically my autism. I don't think neurotypicals have as much fun on swings.
We do.
Well, how come you're not having a go?
Oh,
See?
because I'm trying to look at the shot.
I'm now 24, and up to, say, 3 or 4 years ago, even when I'd left the village, kids were still throwing eggs at my dad's van. So it was a real, they kind of grew this hatred towards me, and I find that really sad, because I don't think that I'm a horrible person. I tried very hard to be considerate of other people, and part of that, what fueled my feeling of duty to take care of others and to be respectful to other people was my bullying experiences.
I had a girlfriend when I was in first grade, I think. A wonderful girlfriend. But one day I was walking to school and a bully jumped me and beat me up. And I was walking back home in tears after that, and I happened to pass my girlfriend's house. And she saw me in tears and called in her older brother, and he went, found the bully, and beat the bully up. That was one of the more satisfying. So,
Happy ending.
Yeah, and a happy ending, yeah. Yeah. The music you hear is my brother Peter playing prepared guitar, and he's kind of a world expert on prepared guitar. And when I say he wrote the book on prepared guitar, because he actually did write a book on prepared guitar. Okay, Duplicate the Error is the name of this film, and it is a film about me building a hang glider when I was in high school. This was actually a heroic attempt of mine to create a social life. That's one view. I mean, of course, I was fascinated by flying machines and hang gliders, and I wanted to fly, but also I wanted to do something that would involve other people. So this was me using what abilities I had to try to gather people around me. And it worked. It was actually one of the highlights of my youth, was making this thing, because of the fact that it did in fact produce a little social activity around me. Okay, so I built this from this hang glider from plans that I found in a book called The Boy Mechanic. There were a series of books, I think published by Popular Mechanics or its antecedent, around the turn of the last century. And in fact, the frontispiece was a picture of a person standing on a hill about to fly in the glider that I'm building here. And you see here, stretching out the muslin, this is all straight grain spruce, putting a shellac on there. Well, what happened is I made 2 or 3 different versions of it, and I crashed every one of them. And I get really scared, and then eventually, as I would put it, the urge to fly would once again exceed the urge to live. And I'd try again. So here we are carrying it, that's me in the front there, crossing the street that was between the foundry where we built the thing and the hills. Here you see I did have a sense of humor, putting on my Red Baron outfit here. The glider was not stable. As I said, there were problems I never figured out, aerodynamic problems I never did figure out how to solve. And you'll see what happens. There we go. Now watch what happens to the left wing. As soon as I take off, it starts to go down. You see it dipping? The left wing drops. Pow. It's just and what would inevitably happen is one of the wings would hit the ground. And it was, oh. Anyway, there you have it. Duplicate the error.
And it seems so clear that I'm going to remember people's faces, and I don't. I kind of worked this little game around it, where I would have people remind me that I met them, and they give them a little story to give me back about some significant interaction we had, and then these people would come up to me that I had no idea who they were, and then they'd give me this little story, and then it all snaps it in, and so my sense of identity is there once the story is there.
I think that people with autism have huge social challenges within society, and I think that autism in itself is a subculture within society. The challenges that I personally face are reading facial expressions, I just don't do it, understanding people's intentions, and being able to deal with conflict.
Sometimes connecting with others. You don't know how to. I'm lacking in soft skills, ability to start conversation with strangers.
I have a hard time dealing with people, you know, and I tend to like being by myself a lot. I've had trouble with jobs, with getting along with people on jobs, and even in general communicating, as far as understanding them and having them understand me, and being aware that you know, it's difficult to. These were all things that I thought could be, that I'd learned, okay, that I'd learned, and I thought that I could, you know, somehow get rid of them, get better or whatever, that I'd improve or something like that, or they'd go away. And having to, really face that they're there, that they're permanent, that this is part of me, has been very difficult, especially at this age. And I have had to, too. So, that's it.
Well, I didn't really know what to call it. I mean, I've done this all my life to some degree, and then I used to, it's like these repetitive movements, which calm me down. And in fact, for me, I actually think with it. It focuses my concentration. I do it while I'm on the computer to music, and then I actually learn that way. I read that way.
I can observe, I can reason, I can use my intellect, but I don't fit in. Most people, the people that we autistics often refer to as neurotypical, seem to speak a different language that we don't speak. It has something to do with the ability of their brains, or their minds, whatever, to spontaneously generate chit-chat about stuff. And that seems to be kind of a coin of the realm. If you can do that, then you can get the job, you can doors open. If you can't do it, you're perceived as weird.
So do you have any sensory challenges?
Well, let's see. Well, I think it's mainly has to do with personal space.
It's very, very specific smells. Like there's one certain kind of like Chinese incense that I just I have to hold my breath and just leave quickly.
Certain sounds really bother me. I'm really sensitive to light as well, and I'll get shutdowns and things like that from being overloaded.
I am hypersensitive in my hearing, so particularly high-pitched sounds, for example, riding on the BART can be a bit of a problem. And I also have sensory challenges when I'm unwell. So if I have a cold or if my immune system is challenged, I can find it very difficult to eat particular textures. And then I don't like to eat triangular sandwiches. I like square sandwiches. And I find triangular sandwiches, they just don't fit in my mouth and they're just overwhelming. I find if I'm suffering from jet lag or if I'm particularly tired, then the textures sensitivity becomes more of a problem. I find when I'm on an even keel and I'm just... When I'm on an even keel, I find that it's absolutely fine and I don't tend to have any sensory challenges. But if that's challenged by anxiety or depression or jet lag or being unwell, then I find that they're more of a problem.
What's kind of funny about me operating at such a high level, I tend to do, the place I've worked in the past, they just consider me the typical Joe Blow, Joe employee. So basically, I managed to hide it so well, none of my employees ever found out. It's basically none of their business.
have to watch my head here.
Yeah. How long do you do that for?
I think till the blood rushes.
Uh-huh. Huh.
Computers run on electricity, and there's little computing elements that switch flows of electricity. And I got interested in computers fairly early on. So there's mechanical computers. So you can make computers built out of gears and levers, but you can also build computers out of fluids moving. So you can build a whole computer system just out of switching moving flows of air. And that's fluidonics. I had an early interest in chemistry, and I think in high school I shifted to mathematics. I got a BS in mathematics, and I also got a MS in mathematics and computer science. And I switched, I think I was getting more interested in computer science, and I was working towards a PhD in that. I had difficulty just getting a balance of activities and focus, and the stress around fitting in, I think it led me to just drop out. Job transitions were always difficult for me, and there's constant background of like missing social connections.
The main difficulty I've had in the workplace is that I have forced myself to behave like a neurotypical person for years on end. So it's like twisting myself into pretzel-like configurations for the benefit of other people in order to be perceived as an ordinary working person and fitting in the workplace. But since I wasn't very good at the social part of the workplace, I often ended up in a corner staring at a computer screen, being, for example, a computer programmer, or in a corner doing laboratory work, again, by myself. And so although I was very good at those things, I was painfully conscious of the fact that I was socially disconnected wherever I was. I've been working as a handyman, self-employed, for years now, and I have no problem with that. And if the client is annoying, I don't work for them. And they have to meet my exacting standards as I have to meet theirs. I feel my autism is a trade-off. It's as if my brain were a computer. Are we going to use this capacity, this bandwidth and computational ability and storage capacity to store social programs, or are we going to use it to store scientific reasoning and ability with objects, and to pick the latter? So I'm actually very good with objects, and this pays off in my work.
I started working age 16. I started working at computer fairs, and then later on I was working in computer shops as a technician and a sales assistant. I found that the ordinary banter that goes on within the workplace, teasing, nothing malice, it's not horrible stuff, it's just what people do. I found that really hard to cope with. Also, as a female on the spectrum, I found that my interests were predominantly male. So my interest in computers, for example, whenever I go anywhere involving computers, it tends to be filled with men. And so men interact with each other differently, and I find that I don't interact in the same way. So in terms of humour and banter and the topics of conversation, so I found that very difficult. I also found having the physical challenges which I have a selection of comorbid disabilities, and I found that having those accommodated within the workplace was very difficult. I have hemiplegia, which is a form of cerebral palsy. It means that there was a problem with my brain. For me, because it's left-sided, it means that the problem was on the right side of my brain. That could have been caused by birth trauma or by the amount of oxygen that I was given when I was first born. And it means that I can't control my left side as well as my right side. So that means, for example, if I'm holding, say, a bottle in my left hand, I could easily drop it or it could tip and I wouldn't notice. I don't have the same nervous control. I also find it harder to swallow on my left side, and also my hearing and sight isn't as good on my left side. I have hemianopia, which is a visual impairment. It affects the peripheral vision. I have dyspraxia, that's a specific learning disability. For me, it's different for everybody, but for me it causes difficulties with short-term memory, with clumsiness and with sequencing. I have dyslexia, I have dyscalculia, which is mathematical dyslexia. I have prosopagnosia, sometimes called face blindness, which means that I don't recognise faces. I have scarred lung tissue, which is the tissue within my lungs is scarred, which means that whenever I get a cold, I have to be very careful that I don't get a lung infection. I have poor muscle tone, and I have lax ligaments and Asperger's syndrome.
My art is done mainly through drawing. I have done other things, but I would say that's the main thing I do there.
What's good about being on the spectrum is being different. It's being able to concentrate on things for long periods of time and being able to hone a skill, so being really good at a particular skill, so whether it be painting or computers, but also having really logical, clear thinking.
I understand technology from the granular level to the big overview. And when I was working at NVIDIA, I was working with new graphics cards and graphics technology, and I was coming up with ideas that they hadn't even thought about. I loved seeing patterns in nature, and I can feel nature. That again is a double-edged sword. It's an example that my wife experienced was hummingbirds. There's this alley where people used to smoke between two buildings at Adobe, and one day I walked through to go to her office, which was in a separate building, and I got like this, it was like a thump in my chest. There was something different. And then she said, I came running up to her. I said, you've got to come outside now. She goes, it's not my break time. I said, come outside now. And I said, can't you see it? And she goes, what is it we're looking for? And probably about 2 stories up, I eventually got her to see where this hummingbird's nest was being built. And she just went, how did you know about that? And I said, well, something different. There was something totally beautiful and different in my world in this alleyway. And I'm sorry I had to drag you out to share it, but it is that powerful.
I think there's I think there's a balance where handicaps have corresponding superpowers, and for me, so I have sort of tactile hypersensitivity. I've learned to develop that and use it in helping people learn to tune into their bodies and be more comfortable in their bodies. Learn how to move more easily and effectively.
Put your hands on the floor, on the floor, on the floor. There you go. There you go. Push. There you go. Push yourself. There. Push yourself. Wait, Frank. It's a little too soon. I love you. Frank, you can pull in now. Come in. A little closer. Keep pushing, Alex. Keep pushing. Come all the way and touch him, Frank. And now, get lower, Frank. There you go. That's it. That's it.
Let go, Harmony. You're messing the whole thing up.
I'm always ruining it.
That's right.
There you go. A little lower, Frank, so he can hook. There we go. There we go. Now give me your hands.
Okay, there we go.
And over your head with this. Yeah.
Seeing things visually and understanding spatial concepts and understanding and being able to do things like computer programming and visualize a program and visualize how the thing is structured and how it's going to move and that kind of a thing. And even being able to do that, I think that has a lot to do with being on the spectrum.
I do see autism as a gift. It's a gift. It's the gift of perspective, that you see things from the outside always. And we're not caught up in forces and beliefs and values that are dragging the rest of the world along. There's a certain kind of objectivity that's inherent in autism. I'm very good at moving around in the mind in the area of fears, deep fears that just scare most people. I've lived there. Because I've been able to, again, that same objectivity, that same dispassionate eye, I can bring to my own terrors. And that helps me be with other people who are experiencing extreme difficulty and fears. And I feel a responsibility to do that, to use that.
I understand. Yes, I am diagnosed with autism because I myself can remember, can have a good memory, and I can fix TVs, and I can do things independently.
This is my room. This is my room. Mickey Mouse's first short film, Steamboat Willie. And my mom bought me that because for my interest in animation, yeah. And these are my collections of videos full of my favorite Disney animated features and Pixar films. These are some of the different video game consoles that I first had my eyes on. The PS2, Xbox, Nintendo Wii. I got this Nintendo DS, PSP, and PS1.
I would tell anybody who has just been diagnosed with autism or an autistic spectrum disorder that they should definitely read work written by Tony Attwood, and I would also recommend reading biographies by other people on the spectrum, particularly books like Sending in the Idiots, for example, which is a book which talks about several people on the autistic spectrum. I think that you need to remember that everybody is different, and so finding a book which tells your story precisely probably isn't going to happen because everybody is so different. And if you want a book that tells your story, then you need to write it. But I do think that from reading biographies, you can see that other people have had similar difficulties to you. I also think that you need to follow your special interests, whatever it may be, whether it's filmmaking or computers or music, and really concentrate on that and try and find friends or associates who are interested in the same things as you, and also to not give up with having romantic relationships, personal relationships, and getting into the workplace. It is possible.
She's engaging. Wait till you see this. She's provocative. So I am delighted to present to you. Thank you.
Because my brain was damaged when I was first born, and because of all that oxygen, it means that the left side of my body doesn't work properly. I can't control it properly. So that means that it's my left arm, my left leg, my left foot, my jaw, although you wouldn't know from all that talking I do. My neck here, all the muscles down my face, my ear, my eyes. My left eye didn't grow properly, and so I have one eye that's for short, near things, and one that's for long away. I don't know what you call it. What's the official term for that? Like one's like for reading and the other one's for distance.
Nearsighted, farsighted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's how my eyes work. I went to university for a year. I got 3 A's, 4 B's and a C. Good grades. If your kid was getting that, would you be happy? Yeah? Good, okay. Well, you know what, because there's a couple of B's that maybe I could have got A's, but you know what, I got bored and became self-employed because it was more interesting. It just wasn't a challenge, and the stuff that was challenging, like being in a social group and stuff, that wasn't part of the course, but I couldn't do it. I can't work it. I don't connect with other people. I don't like other people all the time.
We have lost people to suicide. Autism can be extremely challenging to people. So I would very much encourage people to keep on the spectrum, just discovering they're on the spectrum. It can be a relief on the one hand, but it can be terribly depressing on the other, to discover that they're dealing with a condition that they won't ever outgrow. And that will be difficult throughout their life. So I would say just encourage them to get in contact with other people on the spectrum and remain in contact with other people on the spectrum. Find people who are thriving, who figured out ways to cope with their autism. And almost always, it's something oddball. You know, there's very little cookie cutter about success on the autism spectrum. At least that's what I've seen.
So the way we usually start is with check-in. I think we have a couple new people here today. And we usually start with a check-in and just pretty much say your name and, you know, kind of how you're connected to a Sane. And if you don't feel like doing that or you don't feel like checking in this morning, you just can say pass. And that's quite fine.
My name's Mark, who has autism.
Good. I'm Amy, and I have PGD-NOS, and this is my second time coming here. Good, welcome back.
I've been coming to Ascend for a great many years, and I'm not really diagnosed, but the more I read of materials by and about people on the spectrum, I really identify, and I share a lot of the issues that they have.
I would have been, classically described as, socially inept, to the point where I started picking up Coke bottles, and of course this was over 30, 40 years ago, picking up Coke bottles, doing anything to keep myself busy because not realizing why I felt so disconnected. And I think that's helped me in having conversations with my son because I can see some of the parallels, so it's not pointing a finger at, but simply including some of these things that we're observing and discovering together.
As a parent, I think that I was too quick, maybe early on, to try to stop behavior that kind of seemed out of line or atypical or, made me socially uncomfortable. And so I think even as a teacher too, it's easy to say, I've got to get this person to stop this, rather than why are they doing it, Right. And if you can really ask that question, and then you may or may not be able to come to a good answer, but it seems like it's more productive than how can I get it to stop, rather than.
To get people on the spectrum together to start talking more about this very question. what exactly do we want? And the problem, it always breaks down. The difficulty is that there's so much variety. There's such a range of abilities. It's hard to come up with a silver bullet that's going to really handle the needs of everyone. Obviously, all kinds of support for employment are really relevant.
85% of autistics are under or unemployed. I mean, they're trying to solve a problem that's going to be solved in the future when there's a problem right now that needs to be solved that they could solve if they would release themselves from the idea that they have to fund genetic research only. They could spend some of their money trying to figure out how to get autistic people into the workforce.
Society needs to be more forgiving on that. And also, with this upsurge of diagnoses, is not to try and medicate it away. I think people should be allowed to try and express. And I think there should be a certain amount of occupational therapy that's provided or made accessible to people who, or children that are becoming aware of this, so that they can get a level of support. And no, it may not be autism that they've got, they may, have something else, but at least give them the opportunity rather than sticking them on drugs to calm them down in the classroom because they scream and cry when people are singing out of tune, like I used to. I was fortunate that I wasn't medicated because that wasn't the thing that was done in the UK. You were punished rather than medicated. But here, I think society should allow people to be. We wouldn't have had Einstein, probably Newton and others, if they'd been identified and tried to be cured or sedated. I don't agree with the sedation thing at all. I don't enjoy it.
I think that society needs to open its eyes and realise there's a multitude of people with different deficits, if you want to call them that, or difficulties, and there's a multitude of skills that they have, and that we can't continue on living the way that we're living and just section people off and say, oh, well, they've got a disability, they're retarded, or they're autistic, or they've got a learning disability, or they're a spastic, or, it's not just about the politically correct words of sectioning people off, or the unpolitically correct, very unpleasant terms like spastic, like retard, ways of blocking people out of society. We have to open the doors to everybody because everybody's got something to contribute within the workplace and within the community. Last night I went to Laughing Yoga and met a lady who is probably in her 40s, could well be on the spectrum, and she laughs in an amazing way. And it was so wonderful to see her so happy. And the things that she lacks within her cognitive abilities means that she's got this space to almost laugh like a child without a care in the world. And I just found that so wonderful, and so did other people in the group. It wasn't just me. So I think it's really important to remember that no matter what somebody's disability is, they have a great number of things to offer to the world, and it's just being able to see those things and to work around the difficulties. Because if you think about it, even the able-bodied person has difficulties.
Increasingly, the Earth is like a huge boat that we are all in. Now, there was a time long ago when it was less like a boat, and a person could be an autistic person living off in the corner and just ignore everybody else. And likewise, the neurotypical people could ignore the autistic people. But now we can't really ignore each other anymore. What one person does in one part of the globe or in one part of a society ever increasingly affects everybody else. So this is a really good time for all of us to kind of pull together. Neurotypical, autistic, east, west, north, south, and just sort of see if we can't help this boat float along a little better, because we're in rough seas right now. Anyway, if the boat hits a rock, it's going to affect everybody, whether they're autistic or not. So the point is that there's big problems that everyone can help with, whatever little piece they're suited to help with. So I think autism has something to offer in this big picture. Everyone does.
I never want you to know what opiates are like, and I never want you to carry a gun or a knife, and I never want you to have panic attacks in the middle of the night. I never want you to know what it means to say you can see anything you want to see, but there's a free fall. State is only temporary. Oh, what's the thing happening to you? Oh, what's this thing happening to you? The same thing happened to me a few years ago. I want your eyes to stay clear and blue. I never want you to know what opiates are like, and I never want you to carry a gun or a knife, and I never want you to have panic attacks in the middle of the night. When I was 18, I left home because I couldn't look my folks in the eyes, 'cause I've done a few things and I've been a few places where I never want you to go. I took a good look at myself and I saw the scars running from head to toe, running like cars down the Emperor. I punched in bloody nose. I never want you to know what opiates are like, and I never want you to carry a gun or a knife, and I never want you to have panic attacks in the middle of the night.
I like the panic attacks. So, what's that called? Panic? What's it called?
Called opiates.
What's it called?
Called opiates.
Opiates.
Yeah.
Ah, cool. Okay. Do you want to shoot it again? And
I'm just gonna get some close-ups of the fingerings
That's
and
what I
some
thought.
strummings.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. So
Do you
we'll
want
have
me
you do the song again.
Do you want me to sing as well?
Yeah. Do it exactly the same. Hold on. Wait till. Well, you can play, but we're still getting set up here.
I'm gonna go get another drink while you're setting up.
Okay. Let me have the guitar here.
You gonna sing a song, will you?
What?
Yeah.
Does he have a pick?
No.